Hey there, welcome to Papercraft Panda. My name is Misty, and today I want to show you how to make one of these really cute handmade notebooks with a protective cover. So the cover is cardboard, so it's hardcover on the front and back, and then on the inside we have two pockets. One here on the right that holds the notebook itself. You can see where it slides in. And then we have one on the left, and that is just extra. You can put coupons in it, tickets, whatever you need for your note-taking endeavors. And then of course, when the notepad runs out, it's completely replaceable. So if you're interested in learning how to make one of these, go ahead and watch the tutorial. And if you wouldn't mind doing me a small favor, if you hit the subscribe button or even the like button, it tells Google that my stuff is worth serving up in search results, and I'd really appreciate it. So, okay, enjoy the tutorial. Thank you for watching and take care. Now, to make this cute notepad with cover, you're gonna need a few materials. Go ahead and pause on the screen, write this stuff down along with the measurements, and then come back. You're also going to need some tools. Now here's the tools. I separated this into a needed category and a nice to have. Go ahead and write these down, gather a few things, and then get back here. Okay, I want to walk you through what my tools look like. This is a scoreboard. If you have one, awesome. And this is a scoring tool. Also using a bone folder. A bone folder will work for scoring as well. So if you don't have the board and the tool, you can just use a bone folder. My 18-inch ruler, two spacers. These steel spacers are 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch wide. My retractable Olfa knife, a good pair of scissors, and then I'm also going to be using this cornering jig. It helps me make the corners on my case. You don't need one of these, but it's really nice to have. I'll be using PVA that's very specifically placed, and then I'll also be using liquid PVA in a jar. I've got this great double-sided sticky tape from scrapbook.com I'll be using, and then to make the notepad, you'll need a couple of clamps. That's using the perfect binding method. Okay, so this little book has an outside cover and an inside cover with two pockets. To make it, we're going to start with this 12 by 12 sheet of decorative cardstock by Stampin' Up. It's got this beautiful foil, and you saw that I put some score lines on it, and that helped me make these cuts perfectly. So the outside cover is ready. Now for the stiffness, we're going to use the back of a sketchbook that I don't need anymore. Cut that into two pieces, one for the front and one for the back. Awesome. I'm going to set that aside. Then I'm going to cut the inside sheet. Boom. So now we've got the outside cover. Let me just grab them here. All right, so here's our outside cover, our inside cover, and then these are the two pieces of bookboard that add the stiffness. Perfect. And now we're going to make the notepad itself. So to do that, I'm just using an old text block that I don't need anymore, and I didn't want to waste this paper. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this into the proper size. And boom, we're ready to go ahead and turn it into a notepad using the perfect binding method. Now you're going to need a piece of stiff board for the back like this. I went ahead and cut it to the right size, glued it to the back, and then I used a small piece of decorative cardstock to connect the two and make sure that it doesn't come apart. If you've never made one of these, it's so easy. I included a link below for how to make a notepad in 15 minutes or less. If you follow that using these measurements, you can make one in no time. Okay, so we're going to start with our pockets. I'm working on the tall pocket first. I'm going to put a score line on two edges, the bottom and on the right. And then those score edges show this little block here in the corner. It's an excess piece we don't need, so we're actually just going to cut it away. There we go. And then I'm going to fold this over and just start to crease these lines. And these are kind of important because they're actually going to hold on to the interior sheet of the case, but I'll show you that in a minute. Now, for added decoration, you don't have to do this, but I really wanted to just fold this corner. So I'm using the grid marks on my self-healing mat so that I can see exactly how to make a nice triangle. And then once I did that, I actually glued it down. So that little flap is now secure. For the second pocket, I'm just going to repeat the same process. In fact, this one, I just used 1/8 of an inch line. So this little fold is only 1/8 on the bottom and 1/8 on the left. And then I'm going to use my scissor to cut out that little square one more time. There we go. Now again, just reinforcing the creases here. And I'm going to once again create that fold on the corner. Totally unnecessary, you don't have to do this. I just think it's so cute. And I use a piece of tape to secure that flap down. So now once these two pockets are finished, I'm going to fit them to the inside of the case. So that pink sheet that goes on the inside, I'm going to fit the left pocket first and then the right pocket. Between them is a gutter where the book will actually close. So the taller pocket on the right is where the notepad will slide into, and the one on the left is just for decoration. So to get them attached, I wanted you to see this. There's this little fold over right here. We don't really need that extra little piece. You don't have to take it off, but I just think that it fits better if you do. Again, you don't have to, but if you want to, that's what I did, and I wanted to show you why. So now I'm going to go ahead and line up the sheet. I know where I want this pocket to sit, and it's time to use some double-sided sticky tape to get that pocket to hold in place. So go ahead and add your sticky tape. Make sure it's lined up correctly before you fold. You definitely don't want to have to try and unfold it, right? It'll end up tearing the paper. Now I'm going to add the second piece of sticky tape. I'm going actually really slow. This is sped up for your benefit, but I was taking my time here, and it's so important just to make sure that you get as much of the tape under the flap as possible. There's a little bit sticking out, and that's okay. And now we're going to fit the second pocket. You can see that this one has 1/4 of an inch on the thickness for your fold. I'm going to cut away that extra piece here, just like that. Line it back up again. Now we're good. I'm going to add my sticky tape just like before. That first piece, I didn't get it quite long enough, so I'm going to go back and add another little tiny sliver of tape to that spot. There we go. Okay, get this folded over. Perfect. So now we have a flap on the right here that's going to hold the notepad, and we have a nice pocket on the left that can be used for anything the person wants to use it for. Okay, so to make the outer cover, I went ahead and scored that 12 by 12 sheet of paper in several places. The measurements are actually on my website if you need them. And then those score lines help me figure out exactly where these boards are supposed to go. So board placement is important, and I left myself 1/2 inch around the perimeter of these boards so that I can fold the paper over. So our first step is to go ahead and just glue this board down. I am using straight PVA. I chose PVA instead of using sticky tape because the water in the PVA is going to loosen up the fibers in the paper for me. That makes it easier for me to fold the paper over the board without tearing the paper. So if you have a delicate paper like this, it might be wise to go ahead and use straight PVA or even Elmer's glue instead of tape. But if you're working with a very flexible paper, just go ahead and use tape if it's easier for you. So now using those score lines, I'm going to go ahead and just position the board. And then I'm going to use a bone folder to smooth the back of it, get all the air bubbles out. And then it's ready for me to turn over. And I'm going to place my spacer here that gives me 1/2 inch between the two boards. Grab another sheet of waste paper, and I'm going to glue the second board. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. You already saw me do this the first time. Get it good and covered. All right, so I'm going to move this waste paper out of the way, and then with my spacer in place, I'm going to go ahead and just push the board up next to it nice and snug. Make sure the top is lined up, just like that. And then I'm just going to press down with my fingers. Now I'm using this foil paper, so I actually grabbed a roller to add pressure because I didn't want to use the bone folder on the back. It was leaving marks on the foil, and I didn't like that. All right, so we're going to carve out the spine with our bone folder. Use the rounded edge of the bone folder. Do not use the point, because when the paper is wet, it's quite delicate and the point could tear the paper. So just take your time. Now fold each of the leaves carefully. So I folded the front, now I'm doing the back. Just enough so that it starts to wrap around the board. It's time to go ahead and draw your corners on, so I'm using my jig to do that. And then I'm going to grab my scissor and just cut these away. If you need help with corners, I've left a link below to my case binding tutorial that teaches you how to do those corners. It's also going to teach you how to do this part, where you're going to glue the top and bottom of the book and the sides. Now I sped this up a little bit. Let me get this glue out of the way. There we go. I sped this up a little bit because some of you have seen me do this before, but I just want to call out a couple things. First, be very careful with the paper. I'm actually going pretty slow, and I'm barely pressing with my bone folder to get the excess glue out. I don't want to tear the paper. And like I said, it's pretty delicate when it's wet, so take your time. Just going to use the pointy end to kind of help carve out those gutter marks. And then it's time to do the other side the exact same way. Apply your glue. Remove your waste paper. And then fold. Again, just using my thumb to get the excess air out. Then I'll grab my bone folder and go over it one more time. There we go, just like that. I'm using my thumb to press there in the spine. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and run the bone folder to get out excess air. Okay, so we're gonna turn it and do the left and right sides. Now, I'm gonna zoom in here in a minute after I apply the glue to show you how I create corners, but if you need additional help, I've left a link below to part 2 of the case binding tutorial that includes really close-up technique videos to show you how to create these corners yourself easily. All right, let's zoom in here. So I'm forming the corner, and this is sped up, but I'm taking my time going slow here. I don't want to tear the paper. There's glue all over it, and it's pretty wet at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and just use the tip of the bone folder to push that paper in just slightly, and then we're going to flip it over and now use the thumb to smooth out and use the bone folder to smooth out any excess air. I always recommend going from the center up and the center down. That moves the air bubbles to the edges, and if any glue is in there that needs to come out, it's easier to remove it that way. So okay, we're speeding this up. Add your glue. You don't want too much, so I actually went back through here with my finger and smoothed it out a little bit. And then once again, we're going to do corners. I'm not going to zoom in here, but you can see I'm following the same exact procedure I did before. There we go. And I'm doing a first smooth with my thumb, and then I'm going in with my bone folder second, just because this paper is pretty delicate. All right, so here we are. Our case is done. Now it's time to fit the inside of the case. So let's just line this up. You kind of want the same distance from the top and bottom, and the sides should be pretty snug, whereas the top and bottom should have about 1/8 of an inch space. Once you know about where it's going to go, grab a piece of scratch paper or waste paper, flip it over, and we're going to put glue on the back. Now I'm using straight PVA, but you can use PVA mixed with methyl cellulose here. And methyl cellulose just thins out the PVA. It makes it easier to spread. So if you're not sure how to do that, I left a link to the tutorial below where I show you how to mix these two together effectively, which is important because if you get the wrong mixture, you can have glue that's way too thin or way too thick. Okay, so I went ahead and just laid it glued side down into the inside of our case. And now I'm using the pad of my finger to just define that crease. Okay. Now, once you've got it pretty well defined, go ahead and grab your bone folder and use the rounded edge of the bone folder to further define the hinge on the left and the right. Just kind of keep working it while it's flexible enough to do so. I like to fold the cover up and then smooth all of the air bubbles out. Now, if you have time, I definitely recommend pressing this case under some weight. The weight can be 2 or 3 large books, just, big enough to cover the case. And then you'll want a couple sheets of waste paper. You can use newsprint for this, or you can use just regular copy or printer paper. Slide the first sheet underneath the case, and the second sheet should go on the inside of the case between the pockets. These sheets of paper, this waste paper, are going to absorb the excess water. And as long as the water gets out overnight, it's not going to warp your book. Okay, so now that we're done, you get the fun part. It's time to decorate this thing. So I went ahead and grabbed some scraps from last year, just a bunch of stuff, and I created a fun front cover that looks like this with a little satin bow. And then I also decorated the inside left pocket. So it's cute too. And I want to show you how this notepad fits together. So once the notepad is finished, I added some stamps, just some little details like that. And then I hold the back of it and slide it into the pocket. This is where that tipped corner pocket really makes it easy for us to put the notepad back in. And this is a standard 3-inch wide notepad. So as long as they're using a 3-inch wide notepad, they can constantly refill this cute little case. Okay. That's it for this tutorial. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely let me know in the comments below. And please, if you can, hit that subscribe button. I guess it's a great way to tell Google that I'm worth serving up in their search results. If you want more information, more tutorials as soon as they come out, head on over to my blog and subscribe to my newsletter. I send out a newsletter once a week, only with the details that you need to know, and I include lots of tips and tricks on how to make your own books just like this at home. Okay, until next time, thank you for watching, and take care.